All right, it's cold, but you know what that means. Great running weather. I am at Cache Creek Trailhead and gonna hit some snow trails today. It was minus 10 degrees leaving home, and out here in the Cache Creek drainage system, it's gonna be a lot colder, and especially as the sun rises, it always gets colder. So it's gonna be a cold one, but again, that means it's gonna be great running. We have dozens and dozens of groomed trails through this trail system. The summer trails now get groomed for snow biking and snow travel along with the Nordic Track. So it's gonna be fun, it should be fast. Nice, cold, crunchy snow, good tact, good grip, should be just perfect. And today we're going to talk about one of my athletes, Zach. Zach's an adaptive athlete. He was born without a leg just above his right knee, and he just recently went to New Zealand to do a 21K trail race, Tararira Ultra Marathon Trail Series. And we're going to talk some coaching process that we did together for this race, and ultimately his long-term goal of UTMB 40K later this summer in Chamonix, France. And this coaching process is going to help every runner out there. So regardless of what type of runner you are, we're going to kind of dive into some fun stuff that's going to help you as well. So all right, got to get mentally up for the hardest part is just getting out the truck door when it's colder than minus 10. Let's go though. Down there's the truck. Got a little bit of a climb, and we're gonna hit some sun to really warm up. But conditions are amazing. It's hard to describe to people how much fun winter running is in Jackson Hole. So back to Zach. We had two goals for his New Zealand race, the 21K. Number one goal was to discover what is fun for him. We wanted him to discover what really truly is fun and why he races, why he's doing what he's doing. He has a foundation called Born to Adapt, where his whole mission is to encourage more adaptive athletes to get into trail running. So that's his overriding mission. So we know what his goals are, but personally, what is his fun goals? How does he have fun? How do you have fun? How do we all have fun? We all have fun in a different way, whether it's challenging ourselves to the fullest extent, maybe it's running with others, the joy of just being out, whatever it is. Zach's number one goal was to discover what is fun for him. And second goal was to use this race as a training race to understand appropriate levels of effort, execute race strategy, and first and foremost, to understand what it takes to be patient early in a race to finish strong. This is he and I's first race together. This is our first season together. So we needed to use this race as not only a training race, but again, to really execute race strategy. And always race strategy is patience. And that number one goal of what discovering fun for you is, fun for Zach, that fun then points back to allowing you to be patient. Allowing you to be patient early in the race, during the race so you can finish strong, being patient early in the season, being patient with developing maybe more speed or more development in general that we're going to talk about. But understanding what's fun for you gives you the patience to see all this as a lifelong pursuit. All right, we're going to continue to follow this trail in the sun. This is not a Groom Trail that I was mentioning earlier. This is just a trail that was put in by foot travel. So it's a little slow, but it's in the sun. It allows me to warm up. It gives me a little climb. But then we're going to hit over and drop down in and get over into the trees. And in the trees is where it's going to be buffed out, single track, groomed for the snow. And it's going to be amazing. All right, right down here is the Nordic Track that gets groomed. That heads right up the canyon. We're right alongside that. We're going to cross that and head into the trees. But let's dive into Zach's race execution. So this was a 21K in New Zealand. So for Zach, this is a long enough race where we really need to execute the first 2/3 of the race where he does not go out too hard. It's the most common mistake any runner makes, is going out too hard, regardless of the distance. So you can't run a 10K at 5K pace. So in the build-up to this race with Zach and I, a lot of the training, and I mentioned this in earlier videos, we focused on getting him faster in general. But secondly, we needed to use our training to give him an understanding of what appropriate effort is relative to the distance. So it was key for him to understand where his threshold was. If you have my books, my training plans, that's zone 6. Zone 6 is threshold. And again, I use 8 zones. So not every zone system out there with coaches is created equally. Okay, so my zone 6 is threshold. So it was important for Zach to understand his threshold. And typically threshold at a race level of effort can be sustained for just about an hour. Okay, so this race is going to be much longer than an hour for Zach. So we could not approach zone 6 too quickly. We wanted to save that for the last 1/3 of the race. In training, I put a lot of emphasis on certain runs on trail so he could understand this type of effort. And that went into our race strategy. And since the Nordic Track is so buff and so firm right now, we're gonna take it up the Nordic Track, stay in the sun, and then come back through the trees. So I mentioned, I'm gonna run and talk. This is so nice. Starting to warm up. So I mentioned common mistake most runners make, going out too hard and having diminishing returns later in the race that we want to avoid. And this is not only with amateurs or age groupers. You see it a lot in the ranks of the professional ultra men, specifically the men a lot. Women tends to be a little smarter, they run their own race. But we saw it also at the New York City Marathon last fall, where a runner went out way too fast. Front runner
hey, he got a lot of exposure time for his sponsor, but forget what mile marker, he essentially collapsed and had to be taken from the course. Just, you know, he's got the knowledge. He knows that that's not sustainable. And that's what I wanted Zach to really experience from this race, is that we needed a successful first race, understanding what appropriate effort is that will allow him to take that back to training and to his future races. So for Zach's race plan, if we know he can sustain a threshold effort at about an hour, and this 21K is going to be much more than an hour, our plan for the first 2/3 of the race, I needed to keep him under zone 6. So our goal was to use zone 5 as an alarm bell to back off and try to spend all his time under zone 6, not letting a heart rate spike on hills, backing off on uphills to be efficient, watching heart rate. That's key. Being able to run uphill, managing your effort, or even going into a hike at first to manage your heart rate so you don't go over, and focusing a little bit more on the downhills to maintain your effort, taking advantage of the downhills. Again, a lot of athletes place so much emphasis on going uphill well that they then need to use downhill for recovery. And this was another part of our strategy. I wanted Zach to understand how to utilize terrain, how to take advantage of downhills, because now the effort's lower, the heart rate's lower on the downhill, and you're moving faster. So that all went into this first 2/3 of his race. And so this strategy went into his training. A lot of his runs on trail, I had him manage his effort going uphill, walk, hiking, run combo, and then push downhill a little bit. So he understood that strategy. And then what did we do on the last third of the race? At the last third of the race, he hits a big downhill, and then it's flat for about 3K into the finish. So what is this telling us? Okay, this downhill, he's able to run a lot faster than he has been, and then the flat, he's able to run a lot faster. So we wanted to take advantage of this. If he went out too hard, went into threshold too early, he's gonna maybe slow down this last third of the race. We didn't want diminishing returns here. We wanted to utilize the terrain and take advantage of the terrain when it allows him to go his fastest, still appropriately. So my last comment to him in our race plan was, first 2/3 of the race is a warm-up, the last third of the race, apply the gas. The race starts. And his comment to me after the race, best race ever. I can't believe how many people we passed. And that was the goal. Start picking people off on that downhill and on that flat into the finish. See how many people you can really chase down and pass. And that was the time he kicked it into threshold. So if you look at his heart rate distribution throughout the whole race, it was perfect. He had a little over 16 minutes at threshold, which is awesome for this distance. And so he nailed the race execution, which was our #1 goal. This is my turnaround. We're gonna bomb down, and I'm gonna get some good eccentric loading practice on a downhill. I haven't had a lot of downhill yet this early season. So like I said, downhill training is great eccentric loading. It's very, very good strength, especially early season. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus on having good form. So I'm not gonna run so fast where I'm forced to heel strike and brake and put a lot of stress on my quads, causing the IT band trouble, causing tight hip flexors, not utilizing your glutes. I'm gonna run controlled and relaxed and focused only on my foot strike, that subtle forefoot to heel strike, and then propel myself forward. And then we're gonna hit the trail junction, we're gonna get into the trees and have some fun rolling Groom Trails. To race well, you've got to put the ego in the pocket early in the race and then apply the gas later. It's not important how you start, it's important how you finish. And the ego will always want to pull you into that early mistake of going too fast. All right, here's our left turn into Groom Trails through the trees. So what they do is they just pull a sled on a snow machine with some weight on it and create a Groom Trail. And so every race has a threshold. Every race effort has a threshold. Every purpose in training has a threshold. And this comes from practice. This comes from the training. So start reflecting on some of your runs, your long runs, your quality runs. After your run, sit down and look at, hey, what was my average heart rate? What was my average speed? Was my uphill speed and effort allowing me to run well downhill, or did I have to slow up on a downhill to get recovery? All these reflections are going to allow you to gain knowledge for your race of what is appropriate level of race effort or race threshold. Thanks for coming along. Over and out from Jackson Hole, Cache Creek Trail System, Born to Run World. And you know the drill. Be a courier. Pass on the message. See you next time.